Hi, in this video I'm going to be talking about a simple way that has been very useful to me in doing shadow work or inner work to help me release dense energies and negative thought forms and beliefs and emotions that have been hindering me from making the progress that I would like to make in my life. Those fears, the anxieties, the insecurities, the tensions, and some of those repeating situations, those themes and those patterns that have been occurring in my life that have made me stop and think and wonder what's up, because they have come back into my life as a sign that there's something additional that needs to be done, and that additional thing is inner work. So I'm beginning to see, and I long realized that inner work is just something that cannot be avoided. And this is something that all of us are realizing at this time that we must do. And no one else can do this work for us. It's just something that we have to do by ourselves. And our souls are calling for us to do this work because our souls are growing and expanding, and this process of evolution, this process of growth and expansion and awakening and ascension and raising in vibration is requiring that most of us, of all of us, go back and deal with those emotions and deal with that baggage and with that dense energy and release those things from our lives that are preventing us from leaving the ground. You remember, we are light beings, and in order for light beings to go up, we need to let go of the baggage. I mean, how are you going to be flying up there? How are you going to be becoming lighter and lighter when you're holding on to baggage? So in a way, this is sort of requiring each of us to get rid of the baggage and all those things that are preventing us from evolving, from awakening, from moving forward, from making the steps that are required so that we can really enjoy this life, so that you can really feel this love, so that you can really expand into the fullness of who we are. So inner work is just something that cannot be avoided, and is so useful. And maybe we should not even think about it as inner work. We should think about it as inner play, so that there's joy behind the thing we're doing, even though it's a painful situation in many cases. And most of the times we don't want to go back there and dig into the past and figure out what happened, because some of these things are so painful. So most of us, including myself, it's something that we don't want to do. But unfortunately or fortunately, depending on your perspective, this is something that we have to do. And the more we work with even tools like crystals, because the more, and whichever spiritual tool that we're working with, the more we realize that inner work is something that we have to do. Working with crystals, our awakening, our consciousness is opened. Our psychic senses become activated. We become more aware. We become more sensitive. We drop into our hearts. We begin to see things that we never thought we would see before. And all these things are leading us into our heart, into love, into joy, into letting go of things that don't serve us. So crystals really act as one of, for me, they have really been one of the most important tools that have brought me into myself. As they kept teaching me and forcing me or compelling me or to go inward, I began to see things that I never saw before, have understandings and awarenesses that I never had before. And as these things were brought to my attention, it forced me to take action on them. And as I took action on them, I realized that my life became better and better. So crystals truly have been a tool of bringing me inward and helping me understand situations that were happening, bring them to my awareness. And I understood that when those things were brought to my awareness, they were being brought there for me to take action, some sort of action on them to help my life transform. They were just not beautiful tools. They are for me tools of healing, tools of transformation, and tools of assistance that help to bring more light into my being. And as more light is brought into my being, density, comes up. And when that dense energy comes up, it's for me to look at it and say, what's this, what's that, and what can I do to get rid of this density? Because as more light comes in, the dense energy just has to come to the surface. And what are we going to do with the dense energy when it comes to the surface? When the dense energy comes to the surface, we have to figure out what to do with it so it doesn't suffocate us. And that inner work is a process that helps us to get rid of dense energies. So it's very important. It's very, very important. And it's not to be escaped. It's unavoidable. So that's why I think that it's very important to share it, because it's something that we must do. And it's something that is so loving, because it's really something that is about choosing us. When you're willing to do your inner work, you're saying yes to you. You're saying yes to your fullness. You're saying yes to loving yourself because you love yourself so much that you want to let go of things that don't work out so that you can feel better, so that you can live, really be love, really be light. So inner work is so important. You know, in the beginning when I started understanding the process of shadow work as from the point of forgiveness. Forgiveness was the way that I knew how to do shadow work. So I forgave a lot of things. I forgave a lot of people. I forgave myself. But then I began to realize that certain things that I thought I had forgiven were coming back into my life, were recurring in my life. And I knew at that point that, you know what? Forgiveness was good. It had taken me to a certain point. It had made me feel so much better. But the fact that these things or these situations or circumstances kept recurring in my life meant that there was some additional work to be done, that something extra needed to be done. And that was to go back into the root and uproot this situation from the source and identify it or shine a light on it, make peace with that situation from a whole different perspective, a deeper level, and cut those links in cases where I would, or make forgiveness and just send love and bring closure to those situations. And an example of this and how I do this inner work of going back into the past is I usually have experience, like for a long time, I've always had this problem or this issue with feeling stuck in my life. I always felt stuck, no matter what. I was caught up in situations or I was happily engaged in something, I would get to a point and I would feel stuck. And I always used to wonder, why am I always feeling stuck? And that feeling of being stuck was accompanied by another feeling of feeling that I cannot be caged in, I cannot be imprisoned, I must be free by all cost, by all cost. I need to be liberated. I'm a free spirit. I need to do whatever. It is almost a reaction to the inner or subconscious feeling of me wanting to be free. And usually I would find this thing sabotaging my life. This feeling of I'm stuck, and now because I'm stuck, I'm going to react and respond in this particular way. I want freedom. I don't want to be caged, you know? And I started to do the inner work because I realized that this thing was hindering me. This thing was a baggage that came from the past. So I went back into my life. I mean, I had to quiet myself to really figure out where this feeling of being stuck came from. And I realized that this feeling came from my past. When I was a little girl, I was 10 years old. My parents had taken me to a boarding school in the boondocks in Africa. I mean, we lived in Africa, but then I moved away from home. They took me to a boarding school in the boonies in Africa. And when I remember the feeling of being there at 10 years old, feeling stuck, feeling powerless, feeling helpless, feeling imprisoned, feeling that I was lost and abandoned, and just, it was just a whole crazy thing. And that feeling stuck with me and influenced my life. It left an energetic imprint in my cellular memory that has influenced my life for a long time. And when I went back doing my shadow work and I identified that situation as being the cause of this feeling of being stuck, that alone was breakthrough enough. So sometimes when you're doing shadow work, just knowing when that thing occurred in your life is freedom enough. That acknowledgement that I know that this was the root cause of that situation shines a big light that brings freedom. But then you can also go further and deeper with the process. For me, I acknowledged that situation and I sent peace and I love into that situation. And in addition to that, I interacted with that aspect of me, the little girl who felt left and stuck in that school when she was 10 years old. And for purposes of this video, I'll call that little girl Little Caroline. So I interacted with little Caroline and I took her by the hand and I literally walked her out of that school. We went past the gates and into the world. So I could envision myself interacting with this aspect of myself, this little scared girl who always felt stuck, and moving out, taking her hand and walking her out of that school and just telling her that, you know, the world is ready for us now. We are free. and even invited her into my life now so that we could merge together and be as one. So this is how I do my inner work. My inner work is, first of all, to acknowledge the root cause of the situation, and that sometimes is enough. Or sometimes I go deeper and reconcile with that and engage with that past aspect of myself. And if necessary, I bring and merge that aspect of myself into this life so that we can move forward, so that the support and the love of this aspect of myself can move forward in my life. And now, because I have worked through that process, I am now expecting that the outer reality, my outer waking reality, will begin to shift because I have made the inner changes required to make the shift of not being stuck. It might take some time and it does require patience, but these changes eventually come. The thing is, we have to hold on to a frequency and a belief long enough for the situation to manifest. So I'm just waiting for the outer waking reality to reflect back to me what's really been happening on the inside. So this is how a simple way that I do my inner work. How do you guys do your inner work? I would like to know, and it would be nice if you left some comments below of how you do your inner work, just so that you can help someone else who might be listening to this video or who is interested in knowing various ways of doing inner work. We are all helping each other, we are all growing, and we are all in this journey together. So just leave your comments of how you do your inner work below. So this process really requires honesty. There's no judgment here. It requires vulnerability. It requires love for ourselves, personal responsibility, and just truth. And just facing it and delinking ourselves from those situations, making peace, sending love, and just realizing that in the past things happened that at a level of understanding that we were at that point, but now we know better. Now we are much more loving. Now we are much more aware. Now we understand better. So we just release those situations and send love to those situations, bring closure, because we have a lot of interesting things waiting for us. A lot of the journey forward is so much more exciting. And why hold on to the baggage? Drop the baggage. So let's keep flying ahead, feeling lighter, release the density, and keep moving on. That's all there is. I love you guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye.